The classified file flashed on the holographic screen, its contents revealing a startling truth. Humans had been banned from galactic conflicts for over 2 centuries. Linux, a Benzite student at the Galactic Academy of Military History, stared at the document with wide eyes, his tentacles twitching in excitement. The file mentioned an event called the Terran Calamity, but offered no further explanation. Linux turned to his classmates, a diverse group of alien species gathered in the dimly lit archive room. "This is it," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the data servers. "The real reason humans are banned from galactic war." The group of students had stumbled upon this information during a routine research project on interspecies military cooperation. What started as academic curiosity had now become a quest for a hidden truth that could reshape their understanding of galactic politics. Determined to uncover more, Linux initiated a secure transmission to Earth, reaching out to Frank Kennedy, a renowned human historian specializing in interstellar conflicts. To their surprise, Kennedy agreed to meet them on Benzar, ignoring the centuries-old ban on human involvement in military matters. Upon Frank's arrival at the Benzar spaceport, the situation quickly escalated. Benzite security forces, their uniforms gleaming under the harsh lights, surrounded the human historian. "Frank Kennedy, you are in violation of Galactic Council Directive 47B, the lead officer declared, restraining Frank with energy cuffs. "Humans are prohibited from engaging in any military-related activities, including academic research." Linux and his classmates, who had come to greet Frank, immediately protested. "He's a civilian academic, not a soldier," Linux argued, his tentacles flaring in agitation. "This is a violation of academic freedom." After tense negotiations and the involvement of Academy officials, the Benzite authorities reluctantly released Frank. However, they placed him under strict surveillance, with hovering drones constantly monitoring his movements. In a secure room at the Academy, Frank revealed a shocking truth to the eager students. The official reason for the human ban, our supposed violence and unpredictability, is a cover-up, he explained, his voice low and serious. "During humanity's first and only participation in a galactic war, our soldiers displayed abilities that terrified even our allies." The students exchanged nervous glances as Frank continued, "I'll help you uncover the full story. But be warned, the truth could fundamentally alter the balance of power in the galaxy." As news of Frank's presence on Benzar spread, diplomatic tensions flared. The Galactic Council demanded explanations from Earth, while several alien races called for Frank's immediate deportation. Meanwhile, other species secretly reached out, seeking to learn the truth about human military capabilities. Undeterred, Frank and the students delved deeper into restricted archives. They uncovered references to a human military tactic called total cognitive warfare, deployed during the Terran Calamity. Before they could process this information, alarms blared throughout the Academy. A voice boomed over the intercom. "Attention all personnel, an unidentified ship has entered Benzar's orbit. They are demanding the immediate surrender of Frank Kennedy." As chaos erupted around them, Linux realized that their quest for knowledge had set in motion events that could reshape galactic history. The real reason humans were banned from galactic war was about to be revealed, and the consequences would be felt across the stars. The Academy's alarms blared, their shrill cry echoing through the halls. Linux's tentacles twitched nervously as he surveyed his classmates and Frank Kennedy. "We need to move," he hissed, his eyes darting towards the exit. Without hesitation, Linux led the group to a maintenance hatch hidden behind a holographic display. His Benzite physiology allowed him to manipulate the complex locking mechanism swiftly. The hatch swung open with a soft hiss, revealing a dark, narrow tunnel. "In here," Linux whispered urgently. "These tunnels run beneath the entire Academy." Frank nodded, his face a mask of tenacity. "Lead the way." The group descended into the darkness, the cool, musty air a stark contrast to the sterile environment of the Academy above. Their footsteps echoed off the metal walls as they navigated the labyrinthine passages. The distant sound of boots and shouted orders spurred them onward. After what felt like hours of tense silence, broken only by their labored breathing, Linux halted before a nondescript panel. His tentacles worked deftly, interfacing with the hidden controls. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with data servers and ancient terminals. "The restricted archives?" Linux breathed, his eyes wide with excitement. "We should be safe here, at least for now." As the group filed into the room, Frank's gaze locked onto an old terminal in the corner. Its design was outdated by centuries, but a faint glow indicated it was still operational. "Linux, can you access that terminal?" Frank asked, his voice hushed. The Benzite student nodded, moving towards the ancient machine. His tentacles danced across the interface, bypassing security protocols with surprising ease. "I'm in," he announced after a tense minute. The screen flickered to life, displaying a wealth of classified information. Frank leaned in, his eyes scanning the data rapidly. "This is it," he murmured. "More on the total cognitive warfare tactic." The students gathered around, their diverse array of eyes, tentacles, and sensory organs focused intently on the screen. Frank began to read aloud, his voice filled with a mix of awe and horror. During the Terran calamity, human forces displayed an unprecedented ability to manipulate enemy perceptions and decision-making processes on a massive scale. This tactic, dubbed total cognitive warfare, allowed a small human contingent to defeat a vastly superior alien armada. Linux's tentacles curled in shock. "But how? That shouldn't be possible." Frank continued reading, his voice growing more somber. The aftermath of this tactic left entire alien populations in a state of severe psychological trauma. The exact mechanisms are still not fully understood, but it appears to stem from a unique aspect of human neurophysiology. Before they could process this information, the room shook violently. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the distant sound of an explosion reached their ears. "The unidentified ship," one of the students gasped. "It must have landed." Frank's expression hardened. "We need to find out who they are and what they want." Linux quickly accessed the Academy's security feeds. The grainy footage showed a sleek, obsidian vessel unlike any they had seen before. Figures emerged from the ship, their bodies concealed by shimmering environmental suits. "The Zorn Collective," Frank whispered, recognition dawning on his face. "But why are they here?" As if in answer, a booming voice echoed through the Academy's communication systems. "Attention, Benzar authorities. We demand the immediate surrender of Frank Kennedy. His presence here violates ancient treaties and threatens galactic stability." The students exchanged worried glances. Frank's teeth gritted, his mind racing to understand the implications of this development. Suddenly, the terminal beeped, indicating a new data stream. Linux quickly accessed it, his eyes widening as he read. "It's a transmission from Earth. They're sending an ambassador named Marcus Steele to negotiate." Frank nodded grimly. "Marcus is a good man. If anyone can defuse this situation, it's him." As the group continued to pore over the newly uncovered information, the terminal revealed more disturbing details about the Terran calamity. The human ability to wage total cognitive warfare stemmed from their unique capacity to project and manipulate psychic energies on an unprecedented scale. "This is why we were banned," Frank murmured, his voice filled with a mix of wonder and regret. "We were considered too dangerous." The sound of footsteps outside the archive room froze them all in place. The door slid open, revealing a tall, willowy figure with iridescent skin and large almond-shaped eyes. "Don't be alarmed," the figure said, her voice melodious and calming. "I'm Dr. Zenra, an Altarian xenobiologist. I've been studying human capabilities for decades." Frank stepped forward, his posture cautious but curious. "How did you find us?" Dr. Zenra's lips curved into a slight smile. "I've been monitoring this facility for years. When I saw the alarms trigger and detected your presence here, I knew I had to intervene." She glanced at the terminal, her eyes narrowing as she absorbed the information displayed. "You've uncovered more than I expected, but there's still much you don't know. I can help you escape and show you the true nature of human abilities." Lennox's tentacles twitched nervously. Can we trust her? Frank studied Dr. Zenra intently before nodding slowly. I think we have to. She might be our only way out of this mess. As the group prepared to follow Dr. Zenra, the distant sound of negotiations filtered through the Academy's communication systems. Ambassador Steele's voice, firm yet diplomatic, could be heard addressing both Benzite authorities and Zorn representatives. The human presence here is purely academic. We have no intention of violating any treaties or disturbing galactic stability. A harsh metallic voice responded, presumably from the Zorn representative. Your assurances mean nothing. The mere presence of humans risks awakening similar abilities in other species. The ban must be enforced. As the diplomatic standoff intensified above, Dr. Zenra led Frank and the students through a series of hidden passages, eventually emerging outside the Academy grounds. A sleek, unmarked transport waited for them, its engines humming softly. Where are we going? Frank asked as they boarded the vehicle. Dr. Zenra's eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. To a hidden research facility on the outskirts of the Benzite capital. There, you'll find the answers you seek, and perhaps the key to reshaping the entire balance of power in the galaxy. As the transport lifted off, Frank couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of a discovery that would change everything. The true nature of human abilities, the reason for their galactic isolation, and the potential consequences of this knowledge deeply affected on his mind. As they sped towards the unknown, the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. Balance. As they approached the hidden research facility, Frank's heart raced with anticipation and dread. The transport touched down in a secluded clearing, concealed by dense foliage and holographic camouflage. Dr. Zenra led them through a series of biometric scanners, her iridescent skin shimmering as she interfaced with the alien technology. Inside the facility, banks of servers hummed softly, their blue-green lights casting an eerie glow across the metallic surfaces. Dr. Zenra moved swiftly to a central console, her long fingers dancing across the holographic interface. We don't have much time, she said, her melodious voice tinged with urgency. The data we need is... A piercing alarm cut through the air, causing everyone to flinch. Red warning lights bathed the room in a crimson glow. Security breach, a computerized voice announced. Intruders detected in sectors 3 through 7. Frank's military instincts kicked in. How long until they reach us? Dr. Zenra's large eyes blinked rapidly as she processed the information. Minutes at most. We need to... There, Lennox exclaimed, his tentacles gesturing towards a dimly lit corridor. An emergency escape route. I can sense the air currents. Without hesitation, Dr. Zenra grabbed a small, crystalline object from a nearby pedestal. The data crystal, she explained hurriedly. Everything we need is stored here. They rushed down the narrow passage, the sounds of approaching security forces echoing behind them. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the facility's substructure. Suddenly, they emerged into a vast, dimly lit hangar. In the center stood a sleek, black shuttle, its surface seeming to absorb the surrounding light. An experimental stealth craft, Dr. Zenra explained as they approached. It's our only chance of escape. As they boarded the shuttle, Frank's eyes were drawn to the control panel. Despite its alien design, something about it felt familiar, almost intuitive. I can fly this, he said, surprising himself as much as the others. Dr. Zenra nodded, her expression a mixture of curiosity and approval. Your innate human abilities are already manifesting. This is why your kind is so feared and so valuable. The hangar doors began to open, revealing the star-studded Benzite sky. At the same moment, security forces burst into the chamber, energy weapons primed. Frank's hands moved across the controls with unexpected fluidity. The shuttle hummed to life, lifting off the ground as energy bolts sparked against its hull. They shot out of the hangar, acceleration pressing them into their seats. Frank weaved through the Benzite defense grid with uncanny precision, his mind seeming to meld with the ship's systems. As they broke atmosphere, A squadron of angular, metallic ships appeared on their sensors. "Zorn interceptors," one of the alien students gasped. Frank gritted his teeth, pushing the shuttle to its limits. They dove into an asteroid field, using the floating rocks as cover. The Zorn ships followed, their energy beams cutting through space. Inside the shuttle, Dr. Zenra and the students huddled around the data crystal, interfacing it with the ship's computer. Information scrolled across the screens, revealing the true nature of human cognitive abilities. "Cognitive resonance," Dr. Zenra read aloud, her voice filled with awe. "The ability to influence thoughts and perceptions on a massive scale. This is what happened during the Terran calamity." Linux's tentacles curled in shock. "You mean humans can control entire populations with their minds?" "Not control," Frank corrected, his eyes still focused on piloting. "Influence. And not just anyone can do it. It requires training, focus." As they processed this revelation, a new signal cut through their communications. A stern female voice spoke. "Unidentified shuttle, this is Captain Elena Volkov of the Earth vessel Horizon. We're tracking your situation and offering sanctuary. Transmitting coordinates now." Frank hesitated, weighing their options. Seeking help from an Earth ship could have serious diplomatic consequences. But with the Zorn interceptors closing in, they were running out of choices. "Plotting course to the horizon," he announced, adjusting their trajectory. As they approached the Earth ship, the Zorn vessels suddenly broke off their pursuit. The sleek form of the horizon loomed before them, its docking bay opening like welcoming arms. Once aboard, they were greeted by Captain Volkov, a tall woman with steel-gray hair and piercing blue eyes. "Welcome aboard," she said, her voice tight with concern. "But I'm afraid I don't bring good news." She led them to the Horizon's bridge, where view screens displayed breaking news from across the galaxy. Earth had declared a state of emergency. The incident on Benzar had exposed the truth about human abilities, and several alien factions were calling for extreme measures against Earth. "Ambassador Steele is still on Benzar," Volkov explained, trying to negotiate. "But the Zorn Collective is demanding we turn over Frank Kennedy and the data crystal." Frank's mind raced, processing the implications. "And if we don't?" Volkov's expression darkened. "They're threatening severe consequences, not just for Earth, but for any world seen as sympathetic to us." As the gravity of the situation sank in, another transmission came through. It was Ambassador Steele, his face lined with stress, but his voice steady. "Captain Volkov, Frank," he began, "the situation here is deteriorating. The Zorn are pushing for planetary quarantine of Earth. But there's something else. Other races are reaching out privately. They're interested in the possibilities of human cognitive abilities. They're offering support in exchange for access to our research." The bridge fell silent as everyone contemplated the weight of this information. They possessed knowledge that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy, but using it risked igniting an interstellar war. Frank turned to Dr. Zenra and the alien students. "We need to find a way to use this information as leverage, to negotiate a new position for humanity without resorting to the variabilities that caused the Terran calamity." Before they could discuss further, a priority transmission from Earth Command flashed on the main screen. The orders were clear. The Horizon was to return to Earth immediately. Captain Volkov looked to Frank, her expression conflicted. "These are our orders, but—" Frank shook his head. "If we return to Earth now, there's a chance this information could be suppressed. We might lose our only opportunity to change humanity's standing in the galaxy." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. The weight of their decision hung in the air, the fate of Earth, perhaps the entire galaxy, resting on their next move. Captain Volkov's hand hovered over the command console, her eyes meeting Frank's. "So, Mr. Kennedy," she said, her voice low and determined, "what's our next move?" "Move?" Captain Volkov asked, her finger hovering over the console. Frank took a deep breath, his mind racing through the possibilities. "We can't go back to Earth, not yet. We need time to analyze this data and figure out our next steps." Captain Volkov nodded, her expression grave. I agree. We're about to disobey direct orders, but I believe it's necessary. She turned to her navigation officer. Set a course for the Rigel system. There's a neutral space station there where we might be able to buy some time. As the Horizon changed course, Frank gathered Dr. Zenra and the alien students in a makeshift lab. They huddled around the data crystal, interfacing it with the ship's advanced systems. This is incredible, Dr. Zenra murmured, her large eyes reflecting the scrolling data. The depth of human cognitive abilities. It's far beyond what we imagined. Linux's tentacles twitched as he processed the information. But how do we use this without causing another Terran calamity? Before Frank could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain Volkov's voice came over the intercom. All hands to battle stations. We've picked up a distress signal from Novus Prime. Frank rushed to the bridge, his heart pounding. On the main view screen, a desperate message played out. The human colony world of Novus Prime was under attack by Zorn forces. We can't ignore this, Frank said, turning to Captain Volkov. She nodded, her mind focused. Agreed, but we're walking into a hornet's nest. Ideas? Frank's mind raced, drawing connections between the historical data he'd studied and the new information from the crystal. I think I have a plan, but it's risky. As they approached Novus Prime, the scale of the attack became clear. Zorn ships swarmed the planet, their advanced weapons tearing through the colony's defenses. Frank stood at the communications array, his hands shaking slightly as he input the commands. I'm going to broadcast a targeted cognitive resonance wave, he explained. If I'm right, it should disrupt the Zorn forces. Captain Volkov watched him, her expression a mixture of hope and concern. Do it. Frank closed his eyes, focusing his mind as he activated the broadcast. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, chaos erupted. Zorn ships began to veer off course, colliding with each other. On the planet's surface, ground forces stumbled and retreated, their coordination shattered. It's working! Linux exclaimed, his tentacles waving in excitement. The human colonists, seizing the moment, rallied and pushed back against the invaders. Within hours, the Zorn forces were in full retreat. As news of the Horizon's involvement spread, the ship's communication channels were flooded with messages. Human colonies across the sector praised their actions, while Earth's government demanded explanations. On the bridge, Captain Volkov received a priority transmission from Earth. President Jonathan Reeves appeared on screen, his face stern but his eyes betraying a hint of admiration. Captain Volkov, while I cannot officially condone your actions, I must admit they've changed the playing field, Reeves said. The public is calling for an end to our isolation. We're facing pressure to confront the Galactic Council about the truth behind the Terran calamity. Frank stepped forward. Mr. President, we have information that could reshape humanity's role in the galaxy, but we need time to understand it fully. Reeves nodded slowly. I'll do what I can to buy you that time, but be careful. You've attracted a lot of attention. As if to underscore the president's warning, a new alert sounded. A massive fleet was approaching, the Galactic Council's task force, led by the infamous Admiral Kraz's Thar. They're here for the data crystal, Dr. Zenra said, her voice tight with worry. Captain Volkov's eyes narrowed as she assessed their options. We're outgunned and outnumbered. Frank, any ideas? Frank glanced at the data crystal, then back at the approaching fleet. One, but it's dangerous, and we don't know the full consequences. He quickly outlined his plan. Use the crystal's information to awaken latent cognitive abilities in the Horizon's crew, giving them a fighting chance against the overwhelming forces. Dr. Zenra's iridescent skin paled. The risks are enormous. We could trigger another calamity. Linux and the other alien students exchanged glances before Linux spoke. We've come too far to back down now. This might be our only chance to ensure this knowledge isn't suppressed. Captain Volkov stood silent for a moment, the weight of the decision heavy on her shoulders. Finally, she nodded. Do it, Frank, and may whatever gods are out there help us. As Admiral Krazathar's fleet surrounded the Horizon, Frank began the process. The air aboard the ship seemed to thicken, crackling with unseen energy. Crew members gasped and stumbled as their minds expanded beyond normal limits. Just as the Galactic Council fleet prepared to open fire, Frank gave the signal. The Horizon's crew, their abilities freshly awakened, focused their collective will. A massive cognitive resonance wave erupted from the ship, washing over the enemy fleet. The effect was immediate and staggering. Council ships froze in space, their crews momentarily paralyzed by the psychic onslaught. In the stunned silence that followed, a new signal caught everyone's attention. A massive ship, unlike anything they'd ever seen, decloaked near the horizon. Its design was both ancient and impossibly advanced. A message broadcast across all frequencies. This is the precursor vessel Eternity. We have observed humanity's growth and believe the time has come for your ascension to the galactic stage. We offer our mediation in this conflict. As the precursor ship hung in space between the Horizon and the paralyzed Council fleet, Frank realized that everything had changed. Humanity's place in the cosmos would never be the same, and the actions they took next would shape the future of interstellar relations for generations to come. The bridge of the Horizon buzzed with a mixture of fear, excitement, and uncertainty. Captain Volkov turned to Frank, her eyes wide with the implications of what had just transpired. "Mr. Kennedy, it seems we've opened Pandora's box. What's our next move?" "Move?" Captain Volkov asked, her finger hovering over the console. Frank opened his mouth to respond, but before he could speak, the ship shuddered violently. A blinding light flooded the view screen, momentarily blinding everyone on the bridge. As their vision cleared, they saw a massive vessel materializing before them, dwarfing both the Horizon and the Galactic Council fleet. "What in the name of—" Captain Volkov's exclamation was cut short as the ship's systems began to flicker and fail. Frank felt a strange pull, as if his very atoms were being tugged towards the enormous ship. "We're caught in some kind of tractor beam," he announced, gripping the console for support. Captain Volkov's fingers flew over the controls, attempting to break free. "Full reverse thrusters!" she commanded, but the Horizon's engines whined in protest, unable to overcome the alien technology's pull. As they were drawn inexorably towards the massive hull of the unknown vessel, Frank turned to Dr. Xenra and the alien students. "We need to stabilize the crew," he said urgently. "The cognitive awakening we initiated, we don't know what effect this stress might have on their newly developed abilities." Dr. Xenra nodded, her large eyes reflecting the strange light of the alien ship. "Linux, assist me. We'll set up a psychic damping field to help control any unintended manifestations." As they worked, the bridge buzzed with activity. Captain Volkov barked orders, coordinating with her crew to protect the ship as best they could during the forced docking procedure. Through the view screen, Frank could see the Galactic Council fleet holding position, their weapons trained on both the Horizon and the new arrival. "They're not attacking," Frank observed, his brow furrowed. "They're afraid," Captain Volkov replied, her eyes never leaving her console. "And frankly, so am I." With a final shudder, the Horizon came to rest within a cavernous docking bay. As the last vibrations subsided, a voice echoed through the ship's speakers, bypassing all communication protocols. "Greetings, children of Earth and honored guests. We are the Precursors, and we welcome you aboard the Eternity. Please, do not be alarmed. We come as friends and mentors." Frank and Captain Volkov exchanged glances. "Well," Frank said with a wry smile, "I guess we accept their invitation." As they prepared to disembark, Dr. Xenra approached Frank, her expression troubled. "The crew's cognitive abilities are stabilizing, but they're also growing. Whatever this ship is, it's accelerating the process we started." Frank nodded grimly. "All the more reason to get answers." The Horizon's airlock hissed open, revealing a corridor that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. As Frank, Captain Volkov, Dr. Xenra, and the alien students stepped out, they found themselves face to face with the Precursors. The beings before them were tall and ethereal, their forms seeming to shift and flow like living starlight. One stepped forward, its voice resonating not through the air, but directly in their minds. "I am Elder Zornak. We have watched your kind for millennia, guiding your evolution from afar. The time has come for humanity to take its place among the stars. Frank's mind reeled at the implications. You've been influencing us? Why? Elder Zornak's form shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by holographic displays of human history, from the first use of tools to the development of space travel. Humanity possesses a unique gift, the potential for cognitive abilities that can reshape reality itself. You are meant to be the caretakers of the galaxy, to bring balance where there is chaos. As the precursors began to explain the true extent of human potential, alarms blared through the ship. Elder Zornak's form flickered, its mental voice tinged with concern. We are being boarded. The Galactic Council grows impatient. Captain Volkov's hand went to her weapon. My crew will defend this ship. Elder Zornak raised a hand. No, this is an opportunity to demonstrate the true power of humanity's abilities. Frank Kennedy, you must lead your people in repelling this invasion without harm. Show the galaxy the wisdom with which you can wield your gifts. Frank closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to the Horizon's crew. He could feel their awakened abilities, a vast network of consciousness humming with potential. Everyone, listen carefully, he projected. We're about to be boarded by Galactic Council forces. We need to stop them, but without causing harm. Focus on illusions, on mental barriers. Make them see what we want them to see. As the first sounds of cutting tools echoed through the ship's hull, Frank opened his eyes, meeting the determined gazes of his companions. Let's show the galaxy what humanity can really do. The air around them began to shimmer as the combined mental energy of the Horizon's crew came into focus. Frank could feel the strain, the effort of channeling such power, but also the exhilaration of possibility. As the first Vargon soldiers breached the hull, they found themselves in a labyrinth of shifting corridors and impossible geometries. Frank watched through the ship's sensors as the invaders stumbled, disoriented by visions and mental suggestions planted by the human crew. Commander Vexilor, leading the charge, found himself face to face with a myriad of illusions. Copies of Frank Kennedy and his team multiplied endlessly down branching pathways. It's a trick, he snarled to his troops. Push through it. But as they pressed forward, each step became more difficult, as if they were wading through invisible molasses. Frank focused his will, creating a sense of peace and calm that washed over the Vargon soldiers. One by one, they lowered their weapons, the fight draining out of them. As the last of the invaders were corralled into a secure area, Frank felt a new presence touch his mind. This is Ambassador Marcus Steele, the familiar voice echoed in his thoughts. I've just arrived in the Rigel system. I'm opening negotiations with Admiral Krasthar and Earth. We need to talk. Frank turned to Elder Zornak, whose form seemed to glow with approval. It seems the next phase of our journey is about to begin, the precursor intoned. But first, there is more you must know. The holographic displays shifted, showing a dark mass at the edge of the galaxy, slowly creeping towards inhabited space. A threat approaches, Elder Zornak explained, one that will require all sentient species to unite if we are to survive. This is why we awakened humanity's abilities. You are the key to galactic unity. As the implications of this revelation sank in, Frank felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He looked at Captain Volkov, Dr. Zenra, and his other companions, seeing the same mix of purpose and apprehension in their eyes. So, Frank said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his mind, what's our next move? Elder Zornak's form expanded, encompassing them all in a gentle glow. Now we prepare for the summit that will decide the fate of the stars, and you, Frank Kennedy, will stand as humanity's representative, bearing the knowledge we have given you and the power to shape the future of all species. As they turned to face the challenges ahead, Frank couldn't help but feel that this was only the beginning of a journey that would redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. The precursor ship's docking bay hummed with activity as Frank Kennedy and his team prepared for their departure to the Galactic Summit. The air crackled with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension, the weight of humanity's future palpable in every breath. Captain Volkov approached Frank, her usual stoic demeanor tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "Are you ready for this, Mr. Kennedy? We're about to reshape the course of human history." Frank nodded, his eyes fixed on the sleek shuttle that would take them to the Rigel system. "As ready as I'll ever be, Captain. Let's hope the galaxy is prepared for what we have to offer." As they boarded the shuttle, Dr. Zenra's iridescent skin shimmered with nervous energy. "The implications of what we're about to do, it's staggering. We're not just changing humanity's place in the cosmos. We're potentially altering the very fabric of galactic society." The journey to the Rigel system passed in a blur of strategy sessions and tense silences. When they finally arrived at the neutral space station, Frank's breath caught in his throat. The station was a marvel of engineering, a gleaming construct of metal and light that hung suspended against the backdrop of Rigel's blue-white stellar glow. As they disembarked, they were met by Ambassador Marcus Steele, his face a mask of diplomatic calm. "Welcome to Rigel Station," he said, shaking Frank's hand firmly. "The other delegations are waiting. I won't lie to you, Mr. Kennedy. The atmosphere is tense. Many of them are more afraid of us now than ever before." Frank squared his shoulders. "Then it's our job to show them they have nothing to fear." The summit chamber was a vast, circular room dominated by a holographic display of the galaxy at its center. Representatives from dozens of alien races filled the tiered seating, their murmurs creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and guttural sounds that the universal translators struggled to keep up with. At the head of the chamber stood Admiral Kraz's Thar, his massive frame dwarfing the podium before him. His voice boomed across the room, silencing the chatter. "This emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in session. We are here to address the emergence of enhanced cognitive abilities in the human species and the potential threat this poses to galactic stability." As Frank stepped forward to present humanity's case, he felt the weight of countless alien eyes upon him. He took a deep breath, centering himself before beginning. "Esteemed representatives of the galaxy," he began, his voice clear and steady, "I stand before you not as a threat, but as a partner in our shared cosmic journey. The abilities we have awakened are not weapons of destruction, but tools for creation and healing." With a gesture, Frank activated the holographic display. The image of a dying planet appeared, its atmosphere choked with pollution, its oceans acidic and lifeless. "Observe," he said, closing his eyes in concentration. The assembled delegates gasped as the holographic planet began to change. Clouds cleared, revealing lush forests sprouting from barren soil. Oceans teemed with life, and the air shimmered with purity. "This is not an illusion," Frank explained, opening his eyes. "This is a real-time demonstration of our ability to heal an ecosystem on a planetary scale. And this is just the beginning of what we can offer the galaxy." The chamber erupted in a mixture of awed whispers and fearful murmurs. Admiral Krazisthar leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Impressive, Mr. Kennedy. But how can we trust that these abilities won't be used for destruction as they were during the Terran calamity?" Before Frank could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. A frantic communications officer burst into the chamber, his face pale. "Urgent message from Earth," he announced, his voice trembling. The holographic display flickered, revealing the stern visage of General William Hawthorne. "People of Earth and citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice cold and authoritative. "I am General William Hawthorne. As of this moment, I have assumed control of Earth's government and military. The time for negotiation is over. Humanity will take its rightful place as the dominant force in the galaxy, by any means necessary." The chamber descended into chaos. Alien delegates shouted accusations and demands for immediate action. Admiral Kraz's Thar roared for order, his massive fist pounding the podium. Frank turned to Captain Volkov and Ambassador Steele, his mind racing. "We need to act fast," he said, his voice low and urgent. "If we don't stop Hawthorne, everything we've worked for will be lost." Ambassador Steele nodded grimly. "I agree, but how? Any direct action against Earth could spark an interstellar war." It was then that Elder Zornak glided forward, its ethereal form shimmering with impossibly strong energy. "There may be a way, the precursor intoned, its mental voice cutting through the din, but it will require a level of cognitive power beyond anything you have yet attempted. As the precursor outlined the plan, Frank felt a mix of hope and trepidation. The risks were enormous, but the alternative was unthinkable. "We'll do it," Frank declared, looking at his team. They nodded in agreement, their faces set with purpose. As they prepared to leave the chamber, a sudden tremor shook the station. The holographic display flickered, showing a massive energy surge emanating from Earth. "By the cosmic void," Admiral Krasthar breathed, his eyes wide. "That energy signature, it's identical to the Terran calamity." Frank's heart raced as he realized the true scale of the threat they faced. Hawthorne wasn't just staging a coup, he was on the verge of unleashing a power that could tear the galaxy apart. As they rushed towards the precursor ship, Frank knew that the next few hours would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire galaxy. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on him, driving him forward into the unknown. Frank's mind raced as he processed the implications of General Hawthorne's coup and the looming threat of another Terran calamity. He turned to Elder Zornak, his voice urgent. "We need to act now. What's your plan?" The precursor's form pulsed with ethereal energy. "We must counter the cognitive wave emanating from Earth. Your combined abilities, amplified by our technology, can stabilize the spatial anomalies it's creating." Ambassador Steele's eyes widened. "Spatial anomalies? Are you saying Hawthorne's actions are tearing holes in space-time?" "Precisely," Elder Zornak confirmed. "And through these rifts, an ancient enemy stirs, one that threatens not just humanity, but all sentient life in the galaxy." The chamber fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. Admiral Krasthar was the first to speak, his deep voice resonating through the room. "Then we have no choice but to work together. The Vargon fleet stands ready to assist." Frank nodded, a plan forming in his mind. "We'll need a task force, humans and aliens working in tandem. Captain Volkov, can you coordinate with the Admiral to assemble a team?" "Consider it done," Volkov replied, already moving to confer with Krasthar. As preparations began, Dr. Zenra approached Frank, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with nervous energy. "I've been analyzing the precursor data. These spatial anomalies, they're unlike anything we've ever encountered. The physics involved are extraordinary." Frank placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's why we need you on this, Doctor. Your insights could make all the difference." Over the next few hours, a flurry of activity consumed the station. Ships were prepped, teams assembled, and strategies devised. Frank found himself at the center of it all, coordinating with representatives from a dozen different species. As they prepared to depart, Elder Zornak presented Frank with a small, pulsating orb. "This device will amplify your cognitive abilities and help you interface with our technology. Use it wisely." Frank took the orb, feeling its power thrum through his palm. "Thank you. We won't let you down." The task force set out in a fleet of ships, each equipped with precursor tech. They spread across the sector, targeting the most critical spatial anomalies. Frank led the first team to a massive rift near the Orion Nebula. As they approached in their sleek vessel, the view outside the viewport was breathtaking and terrifying. The fabric of space itself seemed to warp and twist, colors bleeding into one another in impossible ways. Frank closed his eyes, gripping the precursor orb tightly. He reached out with his mind, connecting with the other humans on board. Their consciousness formed a network, a web of thought and intention. "Now," he projected, "focus on the rift. Visualize it closing, the edges knitting together." The combined mental energy of the human team surged through the precursor device. Frank felt a tremendous pressure building in his skull, threatening to overwhelm him. But he pushed through, channeling the power outward. Outside the ship, tendrils of energy lashed out, grasping the edges of the spatial tear. Slowly, agonizingly, the rift began to close. "It's working!" Dr. Zenra exclaimed, monitoring the readings. "The anomaly is collapsing." Frank gritted his teeth, maintaining his concentration. With a final push of mental effort, the rift sealed shut, leaving behind only a faint shimmer in space. As reports came in from other teams across the sector, a pattern of success emerged. One by one, the spatial anomalies were being closed. But the effort was taking its toll. Frank could feel the exhaustion setting in, not just in himself, but in every human member of the task force. Back on Rigel Station, Ambassador Steele was engrossed in a different kind of battle. He moved from one delegation to another, negotiating, persuading, and sometimes outright pleading for support. "The threat we face is unlike anything we've encountered before," he explained to a group of skeptical Zorn representatives. "We need your advanced technology, your knowledge." The lead Zorn diplomats' tendrils writhed in agitation. "And what assurance do we have that humans won't use this knowledge against us, as they did in the Terran calamity?" Steele leaned forward, his voice low and intense. "Because this time, we're not fighting for dominance. We're fighting for survival. All of us, together." His words seemed to resonate. Slowly, reluctantly, the Zorn agreed to share their technology. Similar scenes played out across the station as Steele built a coalition of species, each bringing their unique strengths to the table. The Vargons committed their military might, the Benzites their analytical prowess, and dozens of other races offered their own specialized skills. Meanwhile, on Earth, the aftermath of Hawthorne's failed coup led to sweeping changes. President Reeves, working closely with Frank Kennedy via long-range communications, initiated Project Sentinel. This program aimed to identify and train individuals with strong cognitive abilities, creating a corps of human specialists to defend against extra-dimensional threats. As the immediate crisis of the spatial anomalies subsided, the precursors revealed more about the nature of the enemy they faced. Elder Zornak addressed a packed chamber on Rigel Station, its form shimmering with urgency. "The beings you will face are known as the Void Collective," it explained. "They feed on the energy of sentient minds, consuming entire civilizations. We fought them millennia ago, barely managing to seal them away. But recent events have weakened those seals." A holographic display appeared, showing a mass of writhing darkness pushing against the fabric of reality. The assembled delegates watched in horror as tendrils of void energy probed at the weakened barriers between dimensions. Frank, freshly returned from his mission, felt a chill run down his spine. "How do we stop them?" Elder Zornak turned to him, its mental voice grave. "They are vulnerable to coordinated cognitive attacks, but such assaults require precise synchronization across multiple species, a feat never before achieved." Captain Volkov stepped forward, her face set with drive. "Then we'll be the first to achieve it. We need an interspecies task force, trained to combine their abilities into a unified whole." The proposal was met with skepticism from many delegates, but the success of the anomaly-sealing missions had proven the potential of such cooperation. After heated debate, the Galactic Council approved the formation of the task force. As preparations for this unprecedented initiative began, long-range sensors detected unusual energy readings from the edge of explored space. The precursors confirmed the worst. The Void Collective was on the move. With time running short, Frank and Captain Volkov accelerated their plans. They established a secret base on a remote planet, where representatives from dozens of alien races gathered to train. During one of these sessions, a breakthrough occurred. Linux, a young Benzite who had once uncovered classified files about humans, displayed an unexpected talent for amplifying the cognitive abilities of others. "It's like I can see the patterns of thought," Linux explained, his feelers twitching with excitement. "And when I focus, I can make those patterns stronger, more coherent." This discovery led to rapid advancements in their training techniques. The power and range of their coordinated cognitive attacks grew exponentially. Finally, after weeks of intense preparation, the Interspecies Task Force was ready for its first full-scale test. They gathered in a vast chamber, beings of all shapes and sizes forming a circle around a central platform. Frank took his position at the center, the precursor orb pulsing in his hand. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to connect with the others. What followed was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Minds linked across species barriers, thoughts and emotions flowing freely between beings who had once been strangers, even enemies. As their combined cognitive power built to a crescendo, Frank channeled it through the precursor device. A shockwave of pure mental energy burst forth, rippling through space-time itself. The assembled observers watched in awe as instruments recorded levels of power that surpassed even the precursor's greatest achievements. For a moment, hope blossomed in the hearts of all present. But that hope was short-lived. As the energy wave dissipated, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Frank's eyes snapped open, meeting the concerned gaze of Elder Zornok. "What's happening?" he asked, though deep down he already knew the answer. The precursor's form flickered with distress. The cognitive burst. It created a beacon, one that pierced the dimensional barriers. A hush fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. They had demonstrated their power, yes, but in doing so, they had also revealed themselves to the enemy. Dr. Zenra's voice cut through the silence, her tone urgent as she read from a datapad. "We're detecting massive energy fluctuations at the dimensional boundaries. The Void Collective, they're responding to our signal." Frank's mind raced as he processed this new development. Their greatest achievement had also become their greatest vulnerability. Now the enemy was aware of their presence and actively working to breach the weakened seals between dimensions. As the facility erupted into a flurry of activity, Frank knew that the true test was yet to come. They had formed their alliance, honed their skills, and demonstrated their power. But would it be enough to face the Void Collective head-on? With the fate of not just humanity, but all sentient life hanging in the balance, Frank Kennedy and his diverse team of allies prepared to confront an enemy that threatened to consume everything in its path. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. The facility trembled as another dimensional shockwave rippled through space-time. Frank Kennedy's eyes snapped open, his connection to the precursor orb momentarily broken. Alarms blared throughout the base, their urgent wails echoing off metal walls. "Status report!" Captain Volkov's voice cut through the chaos as she strode into the command center, her face a mask of controlled urgency. Dr. Zenra's fingers danced across a holographic interface, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy surges. The Void Collective, they're breaking through." Frank's heart raced as he processed the implications. They weren't ready. The invasion wasn't supposed to happen for days, maybe even weeks. But here it was, crashing down upon them like a tidal wave of cosmic horror. "How long do we have?" he asked, already moving towards the tactical display. "Minutes," Dr. Zenra replied, her voice tight. "Maybe less." Captain Volkov turned to the assembled team, her eyes blazing with perseverance. "This is what we've trained for. Everyone to your stations. We launch immediately." The base erupted into a flurry of organized chaos. Alien students who had once been mere observers now moved with purpose, each taking their place in the intricate dance of preparation. Linux, the young Benzite whose talent had proven so crucial, approached Frank. "I'm ready," he said, his feelers twitching with a mix of excitement and fear. Frank nodded, placing a hand on Linux's shoulder. "Remember your training. We're going to need every ounce of your ability out there." As they made their way to the hangar, Frank caught sight of the horizon. The ship that had started this journey as a simple human vessel now bristled with precursor technology, its hull shimmering with an otherworldly energy. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Captain Volkov said, coming up beside him. "Let's hope she's up for the fight of her life." They boarded swiftly, joining a diverse crew of humans and aliens. As the horizon lifted off, Frank saw dozens of other ships rising alongside them, a motley fleet of vessels from across the galaxy, united in common cause. The journey to the dimensional breach was tense, filled with last-minute preparations and unyielding commitment. Frank spent the time connecting with the other cognitive combatants, ensuring their psychic link was strong and stable. As they dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the view outside the horizon's viewport stole the breath from Frank's lungs. Space itself seemed to be tearing apart, great rifts of absolute darkness yawning open against the backdrop of stars. And through these cosmic wounds poured the Void Collective, massive writhing entities that defied description, their very presence warping the fabric of reality. "My God!" someone whispered, the words barely audible over the sudden flurry of activity on the bridge. Captain Volkov's voice rang out, clear and steady. "All ships, battle formation Delta. Prepare to engage on my mark." The fleet moved into position, weapons charging. Frank closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to connect with the interspecies task force. He felt their fear, their purpose, their hope, all of it flowing together into a unified purpose. "Fire!" Volkov commanded. The space around them lit up as energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked towards the Void Collective. For a moment, hope surged, only to be dashed as the weapons passed harmlessly through the invaders, dissipating into the void beyond. "Conventional weapons ineffective," the tactical officer reported, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "Awaiting orders." Frank exchanged a glance with Captain Volkov. This was it, the moment they'd prepared for. "Initiate cognitive combat protocol," Frank said, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. "All psychic combatants, prepare for coordinated assault." He gripped the precursor orb tightly, feeling its power thrumming through him. Around him, humans and aliens alike closed their eyes, their minds reaching out across the vast distances of space. Frank took a deep breath, then projected his thoughts outward. "Now!" A wave of pure mental energy burst forth from the fleet, invisible to the eye but palpable to every sentient being present. It struck the Void Collective like a tsunami hitting a shoreline, momentarily halting their advance. For a heartbeat, elation surged through the defenders. Then the Void Collective retaliated. Images of cosmic horror flooded Frank's mind. Vast, unknowable entities that dwarfed galaxies, the heat death of the universe, the futility of existence in the face of eternal darkness. He heard screams, both physical and mental, as others in the task force were bombarded with similar visions. "Hold the line!" Frank projected, pushing back against the psychic assault. "Remember your training. Focus on each other, on our shared strength." Slowly, painfully, they began to regain ground. The Void Collective's advance slowed, then stopped entirely as the two forces reached a stalemate. "Frank!" Dr. Zenra's voice cut through his concentration. "I've found something, a weakness in their dimensional structure. If we can target it precisely—" "Do it," Frank said, not needing to hear more. He trusted Zenra implicitly. As Dr. Zenra relayed the specifics of her discovery, Frank channeled the information through the psychic link. He felt the others adjusting their efforts, focusing their combined cognitive abilities with surgical precision. The strain was immense. Frank's head pounded, blood trickling from his nose as he pushed his abilities to their limit. Around him, others showed similar signs of stress, some collapsing, others crying out in pain. But they persevered. Slowly, agonizingly, their targeted assault began to take effect. The Void Collective writhed, their connection to their home dimension weakening. Through the haze of exertion, Frank became aware of movement outside the ship. The precursor vessel, piloted by Elder Zornak, was maneuvering into position near the largest rift. "Now, Elder," Frank projected, understanding instinctively what needed to be done. A blinding light erupted from the precursor ship, engulfing the battlefield. Frank felt the energy of the task force being drawn into it, amplified beyond anything he had thought possible. The light intensified, becoming almost unbearable. Frank squinted against it, watching in awe as the dimensional rifts began to close. The Void Collective, caught in the energy field, was being forced back through the shrinking portals. With a reality-shaking thunderclap, the last rift sealed shut. The light faded, leaving behind an eerie stillness. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The silence stretched out, fragile and disbelieving. Then, from somewhere in the fleet, a cheer went up, It was quickly joined by others, swelling into a cacophony of joy and relief that transcended species and language. Frank sagged in his chair, utterly drained, but filled with a profound sense of accomplishment. They had done it. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. As the cheers continued around him, Frank's gaze met Captain Volkov's. They shared a tired smile, both knowing that while this battle was won, the work of rebuilding and forging a new future was just beginning. The horizon turned back towards their base, leading the battered but triumphant fleet home. As the stars streaked by outside, Frank allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity's place in it would never be the same. What that new place would look like, only time would tell. But as Frank looked around at the diverse crew working together in harmony, he felt a surge of hope for the future, a future where the boundaries between species faded away, and the combined strength of a united galaxy could face any challenge that arose. The horizon sped onward, carrying with it the promise of a new era for all sentient beings.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.